Ben Riggs presents Reading D&D Aloud. Episode 49, Conversation with Lin Codega.
Lin Codega is a writer, author, and award-winning entertainment journalist who has written about science fiction and fantasy media for nearly 10 years. In 2024, they co-founded the tabletop role-playing game news site rascal.news. They were previously a staff writer for IO9. They specialize in tabletop role-playing games, pop culture, fandom, and queer intersections. They currently live in Los Angeles with their dog, Zigzag, after 10 years in New York, but not in the city. Their debut novel, Moth Eater, was published on January 21st, 2025. And if you are listening to this, you probably know their name best because they broke the OGL scandal story. Gosh, was it just over 2 years ago now?
Yeah, about yeah, 2023. Wow, so I'm thinking about games. I'm thinking about why we play games and why we need games and why fun is necessary. I'm thinking about why imagination is a muscle that we need to exercise. I'm thinking about why we like hearing about people play games. Why do we like actual plays? Why do we like play reports? Why do we like reviews of games, just all of these ideas about playfulness and what it means to play within a set of rules. When kind of like the ultimate form of playfulness is to play without rules. And why do we seek those rules so desperately?
I think the answer to the rules, this is my answer at least, I'd love to hear yours, is actually suspension of disbelief. That
Mm,
the rules are the thing that allow you to pretend that this is real, almost no matter how thin the rules themselves are. Like Fate
hmm
is a system that I'm like, it's a little too thin for me. Feels kind of like we're just making this all up as we go. And of course, we're actually making all of it up as we go, right? But that
naturally.
that would be my answer to the question of rules, at least. Um,
Yeah, I think that's a good one. I think that's a good answer. I don't think that there's a right answer. I think that there's like a dozen answers and all are very good and probably wrong and right at the same time. But I was thinking about rules when it comes to like dungeon delving and the idea that min-maxing a character as a form of trying to like break the rules and trying to break the game, and the idea of like even within the conceit of a dungeon delve of these old school OSR games, the whole point of them is to break out of the dungeon, is to break out of the rules that are like constraining the very narrative framework of the game, and how fascinating that is that even in this, even in like the most traditional sense of like role playing, we're always trying to fight our way out of it. Rules,
rules.
games.
So on that note, I'll ask you, so how did you get into games?
Oh, good question. I think so. My first foray into gaming, into specifically like role-playing games, because that's how I started role-playing games, was in forums. I was a forum role-playing game girly, non-gendered. Gendered at the time, not gendered now, obviously. But those forum role-playing games where you would like join a forum that was like a certain theme, like, oh God, Lord of the Rings, X-Men, whatever was popular at the time. And you would create a character and it would be approved and you would go through like all the levels and then you would start talking to people and you were like, oh, what about if, and you would just start pitching scenarios, right? What if our characters met and they like had to plan a heist, or what if our characters met and they had to, I don't know, they were running for the cops after something terrible happened. And you would just, do the play by post asynchronous forum role playing. And I think I started doing that when I was pretty young. I think, maybe 12 is when I started doing that. And then when I went to college, because I grew up in a rural part of Virginia that didn't have like a lot of stuff going on in general, and none of my friends played any kind of like tabletop, like official like dice, pen and paper. Sorry, I sometimes have the stutter. Not a lot of my friends played a lot of any of the dice or pen and paper role-playing games. So when I got to college and I was like, oh, Dungeons and Dragons, that sounds cool. Like I know how to play role-playing games. I've been doing it for like a decade at this point. I'm practically an expert. I had a very typical bad experience as a femme presenting person playing role-playing games, which I'm sure you've heard a dozen of those stories. But yeah, I had one of them and I was like, okay, never mind. Bye. Bye forever. Went back to my little forums. Um, and then I started listening to The Adventure Zone, which I really dug. And then in like 2018, 2017 or something, the Gauntlet ran a contest for Trophy when Trophy was first getting published. Trophy Dark, for those of you who don't know, is like this very classic OSR play to lose game that is very specific about its construction, where it has like five different levels that you have to go through, and the levels can be thematic, or they can be places, or they can be like interiority. Sorry, they can be like interior landscapes that you have to fight through. And there was Trophy had just released, and the Gauntlet wanted to do a contest for writing games. And I happened to win that contest, which was my very first foray into games design. And when I sort of first, something like kind of inside my brain clicked that, like, oh yeah, games may be good. And then it's just been up and up from there.
So, are you playing anything now?
I am playing stuff now. I'm playing Realis with the Rascal crew, which is really, really fun. Realis is Austin Walker's game that uses sentences instead of dice, which
Huh.
is fascinating. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. It uses it gives you sentences that are and that are a certain level of like real. And however real these sentences are is how powerful they are in the world. So it's really fun. So I'm playing Realis. I'm playing a game of The Hidden Isle with a couple folks out here in LA because it was really important that I get an in-person game because you know, you there's nothing like in-person gaming. It's great. It's fun. You get to just like be awkward in front of people, and it's really, really great. Um, you just get to be weird. You get to be a weird little freak in front of other weird little freaks and have that kind of like mutual bonding. So I'm playing The Hidden Isle, which is a forged in the dark game where you're actually kind of scoundrels for good. Scoundrels for good. And instead of using dice, it uses a tarot-based resolution system, which is really, really cool, working out really well, surprisingly well. It was like maybe too vibes based, uh, but there is like a more of a structure to it where cards compete, which is great. And then I'm also in a secret game that's unreleased that I cannot speak about until May. But
Well,
I
that's
will
very
have
cool.
but I will have the exclusives on rascal.news. Sorry, Ben.
No, I love that D&D was not your first experience because I don't have many people on the show for whom D&D is not the first experience. I am uh revolted that you had one of the seemingly standard bad D&D first experiences. Because man, I go back and I talk to the women who worked at TSR, and almost to a person, it's always, yep, somebody was a total jerk to me the first time I played, and I thought it wasn't for me, and then I stumbled back into it later in life. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah, one of my theories about D&D 5e is that the reason it did so well is it finally managed to get D&D into the hands of people other than middle-aged white guys like me.
Yeah, I think that it really had a coup with its marketing, and it really did an incredible job when it tapped storytellers to tell stories within its framework. Uh, I I lay the success of 5e not only at the feet of the designers who sort of like streamlined it and cut down the rough edges, but definitely at the feet of people who, Critical Role, The Adventure Zone, Acquisitions Incorporated, even Rivals of Waterdeep to an extent, like the folks on those podcasts and on those whatever Critical Role does streams. I don't listen to AP. I don't know. Ooh, ooh, ooh. I've never listened to Critical Role in my life, but I respect the work that they've done. But I credit a lot of like D&D's success, especially in those first couple of years, with seeing cool people be cool about it at a very high level.
So I will admit that I also have never watched an episode of Critical Role, even though that may mark me as an outcast.
Oops.
Um, so I do feel like I should read something aloud since it's in the name of the podcast. So I have made a selection from your games corpus, if that's all
Ooh.
right. So The
Oh my
Emperor is
goodness.
Undead.
Oh, hell yeah. So a quick note about the Emperor's Undead.
Yeah,
I wrote this with my best friend Mandy Shevchuk. And it was they're not as much into games as I am. They enjoyed writing this game and they wrote a couple other games on their own. But they're not really as into games as I am. But it was just a really fun project for us to do together. But yeah, co-authored with my best friend Mandy Shevchuk.
nice. The Emperor is Undead. The undead emperor, necromancer divine, his celestial kindness, first reborn, king of the nine renewals, our resurrector, the necrolord prime, is in need of new lictors within his most holy first house. These hands of the emperor are the liegemen of the lord of the last breaths, and he requests that you, firstborn honor of your family, attend his meditations at the most royal house of Canaan. He hopes that this time apart will see the emergence of newly ascended lictors, joined with their cavaliers, into the most dutiful and lovely service of his most mortuous highness. To see your house exalted, you, as Cavalier and Necromancer, must fight and scheme, allying with your rivals and betraying your friends, falling in love with your enemies, daring danger, adventure, romance, and trials of power and patience. Don't worry too much, Death Breath. You were born for this. So, I I love
The
all of
fuck?
that for my own reasons, which I'm certainly willing to share, but could you tell me the story of that game?
Yeah, so the Emperor is Undead is a hack of the Baker's The King is Dead, which is in itself a hack of one of the other Baker games, which is Mobile Frame Zero or something. But yeah, it is based off of the Locked Tomb. At that point, it was marketed as a trilogy. We now know it's a quartet. But yeah, so that was based on the Locked Tomb trilogy. It's free because Locked Tomb is under copyright. But yeah, it just came about because I read that book and I was like, this is so much fun. It's like the kind of poetry that just like sticks its finger in your eye over and over again. So some of the words I think were like lifted almost directly from Tamsin's writing, and then I think we added a little bit more to it.
I'm pretty sure Necrolord Prime is. Um, but I read Gideon the Ninth, and again, if you have not read Gideon the Ninth, it
Mm.
is uh, kind of Warhammer 40K meets Dune through the point of view of a snarky, really hench 17-year-old. Um, Like again,
Yeah.
I struggled to describe the voice of Gideon the Ninth, but like
It's
a little Valley Girl.
it's
Sorry, go ahead.
very like Tumblr meme culture in a very clear way. Tamsin Muir loves to just like play with culture, even or pop culture in her books, even though it's like very much like this sci-fi fantasy necromancer extravaganza. But yeah, very irreverent. I think irreverent's a good word for it.
That is a good word.
But yeah.
And long story short, a bunch of necromancers go to Canaan House, and some of them are going to ascend to something like godhood. And every necromancer has a cavalier who's kind of like a duelist or a fighter to pal around with them. And it's a little bit of a murder mystery. The ending enraged me. I don't like I the
Oh,
ending enraged me, and I went
yes.
on to the second book, and I don't think I got past 50 pages, but Gideon the Ninth I've read twice. Not
Yes.
to spoil the ending for anyone, but I had difficulty with it.
Yeah, yeah. I loved Gideon the Ninth. And then I read Harrow the Ninth. And I got mad because I was like, didn't I just read this?
Oh,
I got mad. And then I read Nona the Ninth, and I'm just like, didn't I just read this? Like, what just like come on, man, give me something. So I really loved Gideon, and I found the next two books like a little bit not quite to my taste. Very experimental, very weird, very boundary pushing. I think in good ways, but also in ways where I was just like frustrated. Maybe because I'm too dumb, but who knows. Oh, my biggest flex with that game is that I played it with Tamsin Muir.
wow. Author of Gideon the Ninth. So
Mhm.
okay, tell me about that. So how did you hunt? How did that happen?
Oh, it's actually kind of a lame story. I was basically dating someone who was working at Tor at the time, and I wrote this game, and they were like, "What if I could get Gideon? What if I could get like Tamsin to play it with you?" And I'm like, "That'd be cool. Like, no pressure, but I'd be down." And they made it happen. So it's like sick. So I played it with Tamsin and some other members of like the Tor editorial team.
And how'd it go?
Really good. I think my character won. I think my character the point of this game, which is uh elucidated in the first in the intro that you spoke aloud, is to become a lictor. And I played a cavalier, I think of like the fifth house or sixth house. And I had another character who was playing the necromancer. And at the end of the game, we successfully became a lictor.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, we were the only ones to do it. But it was really fun. I had a great time. I played this very big, buff, older lady, um, who, yeah, and then the necromancer was this like kind of younger kid, maybe like 13 or 14. So it was a really interesting dynamic. But yeah, it was fun. I also spoke in like a really terrible Russian accent the whole time because I
Nice.
thought it was funny.
So you man, what are your favorite games?
Oh no. God, my children. You wish for me to slaughter
I
them.
was getting that kind of sense off of you, which is why I asked. I'm
Ugh,
like,
Ben, man. Wait, can I curse on your podcast?
no, but we'll just edit it out. It's fine. It'll be
Ugh,
hilarious.
sorry.
No, no, no. My editor lives for this. It's been a really clean
Okay, great.
podcast so far.
Great. I have a pretty bad habit of cursing a lot, so I'll try and not do that. But now I'm gonna think about not doing it. Anyway, Blades in the Dark, one of my favorites. Anything that's Forged in the Dark, Blades in the Dark, I just think it's such a great game. It hits that level of narrative thrust as well as like mechanical crunch. Um, I'm playing a game that uses Agon as its system. I'm really enjoying it. And every single day, I count my lucky stars that John Harper only publishes one game every 4 to 5 years. and doesn't put the industry out of business. It doesn't just destroy everybody, you know?
I
Uh,
mean, because both your games so far have been designed by John Harper, right?
yeah, yes. Both both Blades in the Dark and Argon are John Harper games. But Blades in the Dark is one of my favorites. Argon, I'm just enjoying. But Blades in the Dark, um, I really, really like games that are, oh, one of my favorite games. It's a small boxed game that is currently out of print and is called Hearts Blazing. It's a card-based game before it was like really popular to have card-based games. And the premise is that you are building a sci-fi show, like an episodic television show within these cards. And it's for 2 to 5 people. You get an archetype to play. So the rookie, the engineer, the ace, and you get a deck of cards with stereotypes and cliches and tropes for that very specific archetype. And you can play them as like a in like a trick-taking game in order to build up the narrative of an episode.
Very cool.
It's
Who designed that,
so good.
if you recall?
Do I recall? I wrote about it on Rascal. I talk about this game all the time, but no, it
It's
is
okay.
escaping me right now. If you don't
Google will have the
mind,
answer.
yes. Let me look it up really
Sure,
quick
go for it.
because I do want to say it out loud. It's called Games by Playdate.
Hmm,
Yeah.
weird.
So Playdate, I believe, is the name of it. But they went out of business. They're not printing anything. They are not, you know, I think that there's 100 copies in Glenn Gibbons' basement, and that's it. It is available, I will say, as like a print and play card game on Drive Through RPG. Honestly, like if people are really into, if I've played a couple games with people and they're into it, I'll whip out Hearts Blazing. It's like if we played like a game of The Queen is Dead or whatever, and they dig it, that's after that, like the next level, Hearts Blazing.
That's cool.
Um, what other games do I really like? So I have a soft spot for Orbital Blues, which is a game by Soul Muppet. And because I think that was one of the longest games that I ever played with like about 2 years of sessions. And yeah, I just have a lot of like really good memories playing that game with friends, which is why it's up there. Sentiment. But yeah, those are some of my favorites. I have a pretty wide variety, a pretty wide taste in games. Obviously, I love dialect. I'm really, really, really fascinated by Deathmatch Island. I want to play it so bad. I want
That
to
one,
play
that one I don't know.
Deathmatch Island. It is you are dropped onto an island. It is being filmed and streamed live as like this game show competition, and you're also trying to kill each other.
So Battle Royale.
Yes,
Very cool.
but you also know you're being streamed live.
Ooh.
So it's like a competition that like you have to sort of gamify the audience behavior as well. I want to play it so bad. It's literally like one of those games that I still have wrapped in plastic because I'm like, if I open it, it will be too powerful. It will overwhelm me like the Necronomicon. And it will just take over my life.
You are a true enthusiast.
I love games, Ben. They're good. I don't know how you feel about games.
Well, I mean, where to begin? Um,
How do you feel about games?
they are salt on the pretzel of life. When you're not playing them, they somehow make the rest of your life better by allowing you to think about them. They add chapters to the book of your life. They allow you to, in some ways, allow you to tell stories that will somehow make sense of your life. um, to attempt to match you in rhapsodizing on the topic. Um, I wish I had more time to play, but I don't. I have a 4-year-old. Um, but I'm in a weekly game on Monday nights,
Hmm.
and I started a secret society to play Shadow Dark. Um,
Ooh.
So once a month, I get together at a local pub, and I keep trying to get more and more DMs to come and run Shadowdark, just because it's so good for a dungeon crawling experience, and you
Hmm.
can kind of do a one shot and walk away. You don't need to think to yourself, "Gosh, epic like Curse of Strahd." Like you don't need to do Curse of Strahd with Shadowdark. You can do a one shot and have a totally pleasant experience playing with people you haven't met before. Um,
Hmm.
Also, like I would say I have some social anxiety, difficulty making friends. So, like asking someone, "You want to go play a game?" is way lower stress than, "Will you be my friend?" You
Oh
know?
God, yeah. It's the easiest in, frankly. You're just like, so who wants to play with some cardboard?
I'll
How do
run.
y'all
I'll run.
feel about stats? It's not satanic, but it is mathematic. Almost the same thing.
That line is new to me and I dig it. It's not satanic, but it's mathematic.
Yeah.
Ah.
Uh, yeah. Games are good, I guess.
How did you go from being a fan to writing for IO9?
The, how did I? I was writing for another magazine, and as is the way of media, I was laid off from that magazine. While I was writing for that magazine, I was also doing freelance articles on topics that I enjoyed more than advertising, which is what I was covering at that magazine. So, games, science fiction, fantasy, genre movies, the usual. And when I applied for the job at IO9, I was lucky enough that they were looking specifically for a tabletop, uh, not correspondent, but someone who could cover the tabletop beat, who wouldn't need to be taught what a Dungeon and Dragon is. Um, and luckily, David Ewalt, who is on my little book stack over here that the members of your podcast audience can't see, but he wrote Of Dice and Men. So he's very much has been in the scene for 10, 15 years. And he was the editor-in-chief of Gizmodo at the time. So when he saw my resume and saw like the clips I had that were about tabletop games and Dungeons and Dragons, it was a pretty easy in for me, which was great.
He's a good guy. He saved me at a party this summer.
Ah, he's so cool. I like him a lot. I should probably call him soon. I haven't called him in a while. But yeah, he was really, really good to me. He was really nice. He edited some of the big stories about the big stories that I wrote at IO9. He was definitely like the point of contact for the OGL stories. Um, when I was breaking that. He edited most of those. He acted as like the go-between between me and Wizards of the Coast when they got mad. And he was just like, I don't know what to tell you. The reporting is good. Which is very, very like he did his job very well. And I will always be grateful for like the support that he gave me as my uh editor's editor at Gizmodo.
How did things get bad with Wizards of the Coast during that time?
They just didn't like it very much. I don't know how much I can like necessarily say, but they definitely like made some phone calls
To you or to Ewalt?
to Ewald. Yeah.
Ewalt.
His name, I don't know. But they definitely like sent me a bunch of emails and then they called him a bunch of times. They sent him a bunch of emails. And then there was a point where one of the folks who was working the PR fire, like firefighter on the front lines, where she was just like, here's Greg Tito's cell phone number. Call him immediately. I was like, okay, weird, but sure. So stuff like that was just bizarre.
Well, I mean, obviously they're not going to be happy with that coverage, but I mean, talk about the most important piece of journalism. I mean, maybe in the history of tabletop role-playing games.
I don't know. Let's wait like at least 5 years after the incident before we make that argument.
I mean, I'm willing to make it now simply because I believe it to be true, and also because in comparison, it would be what like Gygax getting booted from TSR, TSR getting sold to Wizards, like
Yeah.
those are really the only things that kind of come close, and they lack all the sauce of the OGL situation. So
Woof.
I'll ask you this one then. So how did
Yeah.
you break that story?
Can you be a little bit more specific? What are you
I'm
specifically
being
trying to?
intentionally vague.
Oh my God.
So if you
Sure.
want me to be more specific,
Yes.
I will ask the following. Do
Okay.
you think that you got lucky, or was that scoop the result of old-fashioned relationship building, pounding the pavement, anything like that? Because again, I want to ask you something that's going to get someone in trouble, but
No, no, no. I think it's both. It's for sure both. It was the fact that for the past year, I had been covering tabletop with intention and clarity and with uh, an aggressiveness to go after stories that were about, racism and that were about independent tabletop games, that were about how people you know, handled storytelling. So I covered tabletop at a very high traffic outlet in a considerate way that always took tabletop seriously. Um, and always and made space for small independent designers. I think that was probably key here. But yeah, I am fully willing to admit that I got lucky. That someone decided that I was a good person to trust with that information, and that I maintain that if someone at Dicebreaker or someone at Polygon had gotten that before me, they would have they would have been able to do what I did. I think that I had a huge amount of institutional support, and I was, again, very lucky that David Ewell was my editor's editor. And when I like texted him frantically saying, I need to talk to you right now. I have something in my hands that I need to talk to you about. He was he understood how important it was. And he was able to talk to his higher ups and like my manager, who was also like an editor who was also incredible, James Whitbrook. And he was able to really pave the way for me to just focus on that story, focus on um, even more boots on the ground work, and focus on like making that my focus for a month, So it, I am under not a lot of preconceptions that I got lucky, and if Charlie Hall or Chase Carter or Christian Hoffer had gotten that before I did, they would probably have been able to do what I did, or at least gotten pretty close. And again, Polygon, Dicebreaker, comic book, it doesn't have the sort of grace that I was given at IO9. So yeah, I think that it was a series of being the right place, right time, right right person.
I mean,
So
I would argue a little bit more for the possibility of some special Codega sauce in there, and I would do that for this reason.
sure.
It is remarkable to me, as a historian journalist, the things that come walking in my door,
Hmm.
and the things that people send me. it makes me feel a little guilty sometimes. Like, you know, John Peterson is a great historian and he does amazing work acquiring and preserving primary source documents from the
Mhm.
1970s that then I read and I talk about them online and I get in trouble. Um, but his way of acquiring materials is he goes and buys it, and that's great. It's great for everyone involved. The materials are being preserved, the game designers are getting some money, win win win. Um, but I do not have he is a man of means, and I do not have those means. And
Mhm.
instead, people just send me stuff, and
Yeah,
I think they send me stuff because I do what I say. I follow through with my sources. If I say I'm going to keep something secret, I keep it secret and I develop trust. So people seem comfortable being like, okay, here's 5 years of tabletop sales from Wizards of the Coast. Here you go.
right.
Don't tell them I gave it to you. Um,
Yep.
so the fact that someone was willing to, at likely great legal peril, uh, send you that document, and I guess tell me if this is going too far, but did they right away send you the document, or were they like, hey, there's something going on, let me just give you a summary, and then the document came later?
I'll
And
say
feel free
that
not to answer.
I mean, vaguely, I'll say that like we both kind of were feeling each other out. And when I sort of like showed them on Gizmodo, I'm like, okay, Gizmodo might be like kind of a dumpster fire and you can't read it on your phone. However, we do subscribe to these like tenets of journalism. It's right there on the site. Also, I'm a member of the WJA East and I have legal counsel and like I have institutional support. So that was also hugely convincing. Um, but yeah, so yeah, a little bit of like feeling each other out, and then my source was able to get me that document.
So again, for audience members who have not, who probably never actually sat down and read the version of the OGL Wizards was going to try and force on the world, it
Ooh.
it is a remarkably vile and irritating document. Like I felt like it was written by a really overeager happy intern and then some sort of legalistic Satanist. Because it
Yeah.
would swing between like, hey, we're gonna have leveling up in here. Tell us how much you sold, or else legal peril.
Yeah.
Don't create pantomimes about D&D, which is in there as a joke, maybe. But
I
why
have
would
no
you put a
idea.
joke in a legal document? So let me. What were you thinking the first time? Since I assume you're the first person in the media to have read that document, what were you thinking when you looked at it?
I was thinking it was absurd. I think that I just like it is in the corporation's best interest for them to convince you that they are your friend. So all of the jokey language, I was like, okay, cute, cute. I don't care. I was about to curse, but
I
I
appreciate it.
was
Thank you.
I
My
was just
editor
like,
thanks you.
yeah, thank you. You're welcome, editor. I was just like, okay, that's cute. And I sort of just totally ignored it because legal documents can be so weird and you only have to like read a couple legal documents to realize that like lawyers like to get kind of cutesy with it because they have some of the worst jobs on earth. So however they can entertain themselves, I guess, whatever. But yeah, I read that document and I was just like, I circled, I think, the royalties part, the Kickstarter part, and the VTT part, and I was like, this is what we're gonna hit on at first glance. And of course, like the document was full of other stuff that we could have spoken about, but it was like I read that document, I think 2 or 3 times before I started thinking about how to talk about it. And I sort of went with the ideas like what will cause the most disruption to people's livelihoods. Not what will make the game harder to play or like what hoops will people have to go through, but like what will hurt the industry the most. And I settled on those three. I probably could have like, picked out 5, 10 different things. It was a huge document. It was especially compared to the original OGL, which was hmm, a page.
Yeah, I want to say the revised was 20 pages.
That sounds right. The original was in between 5 and 700 words, which is appropriate for a page. And I forget how many words the OGL 1.1 was, but it was a lot. It was 5, 10,000, something like that. But yeah, 20 pages. I Yeah, it was really shocking. It was a complete turn from the structure of support and the fan base that had worked so hard over 10 years to build up Dungeons and Dragons as this kind of pinnacle of creativity and this sort of pinnacle of corporate benevolence, so to speak. It's like, look at what they're letting us do. Isn't that so nice? We love D&D. And D. And to sort of see that document and realize that there it was in black and white that like Dungeons and Dragons just doesn't fucking care. Or not, that's harsh. Wizards of the Coast doesn't care. Hasbro doesn't care. There are plenty of people at Dungeons and Dragons, the writers and designers, who absolutely care. Sorry, I misspoke. It was just so clear that like the institution of that game was so out of the hands of the people who make it and love it. And that was, I think, what made that what would have been like kind of a ho-hum scandal about like rights, copyright issues, right? Like that's it's the driest thing on earth when I try to tell people about it. It was it turned it from like this kind of like copyright issues, who cares, into this like copyright issues. This is an impingement on creativity itself, the very active imagination upon which we have given years and years and years and hundreds of dollars. But yeah, I think it was that kind of betrayal that made it such a flashpoint for the industry.
Well, and so much of your reporting and sagaciously selecting what to highlight from that document helped frame that for people. Because you're right that
Hmm.
if it was, man, I want to say Stephen Glicker roll for for combat, like I want to say you broke the story. I think he was the first person to read the entire thing aloud
Hmm.
on YouTube. And again, he got a lot of clicks, but it's the framing and selection that really helps people understand. Because God, again, it was so long without a writer there to do the selecting and interpreting for you. It can just overwhelm. It's too much.
Yeah. Like I said, I was really lucky that I was able to talk to David about it, talk to James about it, and really figure out like the angle that we wanted to take. Journalism, as you know, all about the angle. So we just sort of had to figure out exactly what we wanted to say about this document and how we wanted to frame it and the angles we wanted to take, because anything less than that and it wouldn't be, or anything more than that and it wouldn't be breaking news.
And I will say, maybe this is a petty thing to say, but I think you got skunked at the Diana Jones Awards. Um,
I have a story I'll tell you off mic.
Man,
I'm sorry.
that's
I'm
okay.
sorry.
It's okay. I understand. That's the way these things go. Um,
Listen, we're two journalists. We're gonna have to be like, yeah, let's gossip off hot mic.
well, then I'll follow up with this. Is there anything else that you think is significant in your breaking open of the OGL scandal?
Yeah, I think the thing that there are a couple significant things. There are two main ones. One is the um, pervasive and kind of constant shift away from making 5e or D&D compatible games. So often, almost consistently now, anyone who is doing an IP adaptation, anyone who is creating a new system or a new game, they are not doing it with 5e rules. They're not doing it under an SRD. They're not doing it with they're not making it D&D compatible. Anyone who is doing anything original is not tying it to Wizards of the Coast. And I don't think that's necessarily all because of what happened in 2023 with the OGL, but I think that that was a huge, huge turn for a lot of people. Um, and I think that that area, moment of time, early 2022 or late 2022, early 2023, really solidified the need in a third party writers' heads that they needed to move away from a party system. So I think that, again, I don't want to take credit for that, but I think that Wizards of the Coast did that to themselves in a lot of ways. Um, so yeah, I think that's a huge thing. Obviously, like the Cosmere RPG, Draw Steel, Daggerheart, those are the big ones. There's also like Tales of the Valiant, uh, the Fallen London RPG, right? None of it's in 5e, whereas like 5 years ago it might have been. So wild stuff. What else? And then the other thing I think is, so here's my tin hat conspiracy theory. Tin hat conspiracy theory. I think that the death of the OGL 1.2 or 2.0 directly led to the death of Sigil.
Tell me why and tell me how.
Well, there's stuff that I'll have to tell you off mic, but
Okay.
on mic, I can tell you. Um, if you look at the OGL that they tried to push, there was so many restrictions on VTTs. You couldn't animate spells. You couldn't put anything into a VTT that was in the new SRD because you could only like do PDFs. It was the OGL was largely a move aimed at centralizing virtual tabletop play to D&D Beyond and Sigil, which was in its infancy stages at that time. And you'll remember when the Content Creator Summit was called, instead of engaging in good faith, Wizards of the Coast was like, here's a cute little demonstration of Sigil. Isn't it cool? And everyone was just like, actually, screw you. It's not cool. We have shit to say. And we are not leaving this room until we say it, which I'm just like, oh, okay, you guys, like, I love this. So again, I think that just like the timing for Sigil was never good, but I think that without the ability to forcibly create a monopoly on D&D VTTs, Sigil kind of died a slow death.
Hmm. Do you think that Wizards of the Coast Hasbro would ever license D&D out to another game creator to make the tabletop role-playing game?
Nah. Oh, I can elaborate.
You don't need to. It's fine. No is fair.
I'm gonna say no, just because it's such a core part of its identity. And it is such a strong IP for them that I think keeping I mean, the tabletop game is so much less profitable than anything else you could do with an IP. You know? I'm not saying that they're not making a profit. I'm saying that like if you compare 5e to Baldur's Gate 3, which do you think sold more? And which do you think possibly made more money?
Baldur's Gate 3.
It's probably Baldur's Gate 3. Which was successful for a lot of reasons, but also because it was something that is much more accessible than a tabletop game. So I think tabletop games are something that is just like, uh, the redheaded stepchild of Wizards of the Coast, where they're just like, we can't really do anything about it, but
I
we
mean,
love it.
I just constantly hear rumors about them getting rid of D&D in some way, shape, or form, and they're just rumors. So I poke around a little bit. Last year it was we're going to sell it to 10 cent. Yeah, the story that seemed insane from January was real, but then it wasn't.
Yeah.
And this year it's no, they're going to sell it to somebody else. And it's the rumor I hear again and again and again. But fudged if
I
I know.
mean, here's the thing, right? Hasbro is a company traded at a global scale. The purpose of that company is to make money for the people who have shares and stocks. If they decide it's more fiscally beneficial for them to sell D&D, they'll do it in a second. They will not think twice about it. But they're holding on to the hope that it will continue to grow in value as an IP that they can continue to mine for whatever soulless dreck they can find. Um,
So, with our remaining time, would you rather discuss Rascal, Interview with a Vampire, or Tariffs?
oh my God. Two really fun things and one terrible thing. Uh, I will leave it up to you. I'm happy to talk about any of those three things. Although I will admit that I don't know as much about tariffs except bad. Except what I've read other people report on. There's been a lot of great reporting.
Then let's talk about something totally fun. And
Yay.
what are you doing for Interview with a Vampire?
Yay. Right now, not much. People are off doing other things, so I'm just sort of waiting, sadly.
And you're in. I want to say you're in the writers' room.
Yes, I am the writer's room assistant, which means I sit in the room and I take notes and I do research and I help proofread the scripts and I check them for consistency and I deliver them out to anyone who needs them delivered. And I write cards and I write outlines. No, I don't write outlines. I write beat sheets. No, what are they called? I write something. I write something I
Well,
give to the
you're in the
writers and then the
writers' room,
writers
so
write.
you must.
Yeah, yeah. I look at the cards on the board and I write them down and then I look at my notes and anything in the notes about those cards I stick into this like massive document that ends up at like 30, 40 pages for each episode. And then I deliver that to the writer and that's what the writer uses to write the episode.
That sounds fascinating, actually.
Yeah.
Um,
It's really like the whole process is very cool, very collaborative, very exciting. And I'm really lucky that I was valued as a writer while I was there. Um, and valued as someone with like a narrative mind and valued as someone who knows and loves the books.
so, other than appreciation for your prior good works, why
Mhm.
should everyone listening to this become a subscriber to Rascal?
Oh, because we are a fully independent, reader-supported, uh, fully independent, reader-supported, kind of punky journalism site about tabletop role-playing games. We are doing our best to cover global and international stories that we pay translators to either write for us or translate for us so we can get sources. We report on facets of the industry that other people don't have access to. We talk labor reporting. We have really great contributors. We are doing a lot of work in the scene to preserve Hmm. Do we preserve it? We're just doing a lot of work. We work so hard. We work so hard.
I
Yeah,
mean,
we
I
work
would
really
tell
hard.
you from my point of view, Rascal is the opposite of politics, which I mean is an incredible compliment. Where
Whoa.
like if you go to the front page of your media source of choice, you will probably look at it for 5 minutes and then feel much worse. If you
Mm.
scroll through Rascal for 5 minutes, you will feel an elevated sense of imagination, curiosity, engagement, and joy about the world. Uh,
Whoa.
so that would be where what I would say to someone. Opposite of politics. Anything that's the opposite of politics these days, my
Yeah.
God, run towards it.
I
Um,
mean, that that in mind, we do get political on the site. We wrote about like the war game based on January 6th. We talk about the trans rights uh help me out here. Bundle for trans rights.
oh yeah.
the itch.io button for trans rights, we talk about like the importance of um diversifying your game and diversifying your own intake, like the culture that you consume should be diverse. And that often takes work. But yeah, so we are political, but we do also like have a lot of stories about stuff like a tabletop, like a card game, a trading card game from a small Japanese town that features the old men of this town who do community service. And it's only available in this like one town of Japan. It's called like uh OG Oji-san?
OG-san something, because OG-san is uncle.
Yes. So it's something like that. So we talk about that. We talk about Kaylin's doing a really wonderful job covering minis and war games, and like she's going through her like process of painting, and sh as she's learning, we're learning. It's really, really cool. And of course, we do like some really incredible hard-hitting journalism. Chase is working on a tariffs piece right now, like every other journalist in the scene. But we're doing it too, I promise. But yeah, we talk about culture, we talk about games that we love, we talk about why we love games in general. We've been able to feature so many, so many incredible contributors. We've made, yeah, it's fun. I like it a lot. We work really hard.
Speaking of diversifying your cultural intake,
Hell yeah.
have you produced anything that might be able to fulfill that need for someone?
Are you talking about my book?
No, yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, I don't know if I would say it would, mm, maybe it will diversify your cultural tech. Moth Eater is a book about Appalachia at its core, and it has two two female main characters who fall in love, sort of, maybe, to be determined. You'll have to read it and like determine whether or not they're in love or if they're just weirdos who realize they're both queer in Appalachia and there's no other choice. Something that happens to everyone. Um, fully relatable struggle, as I'm sure that you know, Ben, obviously.
I don't know what to say to you, Lynn. I feel pretty white and male, but
Oh
I'm always
God.
willing to be the butt of
Oh.
someone's jokes for being white and male. I'm fine with that. Also, I'm 46, so you can call me middle-aged all day long.
Aw,
I
oh, so
know.
cute. Oh. And you have a 4-year-old child of some kind, of some indeterminate gender. They'll figure it out eventually, right? Uh,
I'll just
they'll
say
probably,
yeah.
yeah, they'll figure it out. Maybe. Who knows? I didn't,
I mean,
but I turned out okay anyway.
I've had a lot of trans students in the past few years, so I teach seventh and eighth grade. And I just have
Hmm.
faith it will all work out.
You know what? That's all we got. And gender is not that important. Anyway, the point is, I wrote this book. It's called
There
Moth
you
Eater. It's
go.
it's out now. It's about an Appalachian witch, and it's also about the woman who rescues her and then grabs her by the ear and like drags her through the story. Oh, Betty, she's such a dream girl. But yeah, so that's what it's about. It's about fighting against the industrial mining corporations. It's about the kind of generational struggles of labor in the Appalachian region. And it's about the kind of like tragic dichotomy of being an activist in that area where coal mining is fundamentally bad for the planet, for the people who live there, for the economy. It's just like fundamentally an evil thing, but it also is fundamentally, at this point, a necessary evil. Because if mining leaves the area, a place that already has very, very little public support, very little federal funding, very little um, institutional systems to help people, will kind of collapse. So it is about measuring the need to care for your community with the also very, very present need to care for the world. and how we balance that and how we make those choices. And it's a tragedy. It's a sad book. The two main characters make like the worst decisions they could possibly make at every single point in that book. They never make a good decision ever.
Well, with that, listeners, go pick up Moth Eater by Lin Codega.
It's been called poetic and lyrical by the Washington Post.
For being someone who considers themselves a Southerner with Appalachian roots, has anyone told you you have a very California personality?
I'm gonna go kill myself. Don't worry
Ah,
about it.
there we go.
No,
No?
no one has ever told me that.
Really?
Wow.
Maybe, I
Calif
don't know if you've acclimated or what, but
I've only been here. I've been here less than a year. What do you mean acclimated?
it can happen fast, man. I picked up a Boston
Terrible.
accent in like 4 months. Um, but again, as a Midwesterner, I have vast and complicated feelings about Californians. As a Southerner, how about you?
Definitely. It's a weird transition. I've never really lived in a city before. So now I'm in Los Angeles, which is a lot. It's a lot. I spent a lot of time at home in my backyard. Which I'm very grateful to have. I found like the most suburb neighborhood that I could. I was like, here, I can't take the city. I'm too white. Like, please don't make me be urban. Clutching my pearls, et cetera, et cetera. But no, more than that, it's just like cities are just really tough for me in general. It's just a lot of people, it's a lot of movement, it's a lot of energy, it's a lot of uh, priorities that are heightened in a way that is just not super comfortable for me as someone who grew up in a rural area and stuck to small towns for a very long time and found out that like, oh yeah, I don't want to move to New York City. That sounds terrible, actually. And like actively made the choice not to do that multiple times. And yeah, so I'm learning to enjoy Los Angeles more and more as much as I can. I'm trying to like go to some museums and meet up with people because one of the great things about a city is that you can find affinity groups and like-minded people. You know, there's a role-playing game meetup at Geeky Teas every other week, which is great. There is a trans climbing group that I'm a part of, which is wonderful. So it's just a bunch of like trans freaks and weirdos, myself included, a freak and a weirdo, just like hanging off of like a bouldering wall. It's great. It's so good. You know, there's like queer Latin dancing, which I love Latin dancing. Like I'm a classically trained salsa dancer and to or classically trained Latin dancer who like does mostly salsa to be like super specific for any of the nerds who are going to try and call me out. Um, and now that I'm in LA, there are queer dancing groups where you can go, like queer social dancing groups that you can go and um be a part of. And that's always been something that I've really struggled with. And yeah, so there's a lot of great things about living in a city and living in LA. But I do, like you mentioned, fundamentally struggle with a lot of the aspects of living in a city, um, just in general, but especially in LA, where it feels very, very big and overwhelming. Oh, wait. One last thing. Also great about LA is sometimes you get to go to really incredible things like T-boy wrestling, for which I made this incredible poster that I'm holding up for this podcast audience that says, if you don't mind reading it out, Ben, can
Pro
you read
trans
it?
rights. I'll say it again. Pro trans rights. Pro trans wrongs. Pro wrestling.
Isn't it great?
I think it's in.
Oh,
Oh, and on the back it says
I don't know if you can read this one. It's in
easy
cursive.
pin. Okay.
Come on, it's
I
good.
mean, I'm laughing.
So, yeah. Then you could sometimes, you know, the city's big and overwhelming and scary and sad and depressing and desperate and terrifying. And then sometimes you can go to T-boy wrestling and hold up sexy little signs.
I mean, the city is an infinite delight.
Yeah, so that's that, I think.